Welcome back, tyers. Doing some fly tying today. AvidMax Tying Tuesday. We got a Trigger Nymph. This is a Mike Mercer pattern. It's a great little nymph pattern. It's a cool one. It's got kind of a unique tying aspect to it that we'll get into, but a fun bug to have. It can work as your smaller mayfly nymphs, but you can tie it larger for some stoneflies as well, and a wide variety of colors. So a fun fly. Let's get one going. All right, so we got our olive variation in the vise here. That's what we're going to be tying up today with that insect green hotspot. And to do so, I'm tying on the 2302 hook from Tiemco. It's a nice long shanked hook. It's got a little bit of bend to it, so slightly different than the commercial pattern. You'll see this tied on the 3761. We're doing a size 14 today with a 764 copper bead, tungsten bead. And then I'm using some UTC 70 thread here. We'll get that started on the shank, and then I'm going to take nice smooth thread wraps rearward to where we're going to tie in our tail. And what I like to do on these curved hooks is I'll go back, keep it nice and smooth, and then I'll throw one wrap up and over that'll keep that thread from sliding off the back of the hook. And then I have our tailing material, like I mentioned, the pheasant tail. This is the brown dyed color. And we'll take about 5 or 6 right off of there. Try to keep those tips aligned. And then we can measure out the length of our tail. Whenever I'm doing a longer shanked nymph, I tend to make my tails a little bit too long. So I try and keep that in mind when I'm setting up this measurement here. I can transfer that into my other hand. Give a couple of loose wraps, like so. And already I feel like that's just a little bit long. So I'm gonna shorten it up just slightly, and then we can come in and really secure that down to the shank. And then I'm gonna walk forward right over top of the pheasant tail. It's gonna help add just a little bit of bulk to this fly. Still wanna keep fairly fluid thread wraps. It's going to be a Biot body, not a wire body. On wire bodies, you want to have the smoothest thread underbody, but on the Biot, you can get away with a little wiggle room. Still going to keep it nice and clean as best we can. And then I'm going to work out a little bit of a taper. So I'm going to take my thread on back and just build it up slightly so that we get a nice profile for this fly. And then once we've done so, we can bring in our Biot. Got an olive Biot here. Gonna take a nice long fiber. And then if you've seen us tying any Biots before, Biot flies, talked about the concave versus the convex side of this. For this pattern, we want it to flare out a bit. So we're gonna tie the concave side downward. We'll secure it in by the tip and walk on down all the way to the tail, and then back forward. Again, just keeping it nice and even as we go. And I might build this taper up just a little bit more before I begin to wrap that Biot. Just chunking it out slightly. Don't want to get too thick with it. And we'll walk up to where that thorax is going to be. Even that out just slightly. And then we can half hitch it. And bring the Biot forward. So throw our thread on our bobbin cradle there. And then pull that Biot nice and gently perpendicular to the fly. This first wrap is the most brittle wrap. If you're gonna break it, it's most likely gonna happen then. And then as we wrap forward, you'll see that the Biot is two-toned. You have a little bit lighter olive and then a bit of a darker section. So you wanna keep that in mind as you wrap. You wanna keep nice touching wraps, but you don't wanna lose that two-tone aspect. You can easily cover that up. And that's one of the great things about the Biots that we don't wanna lose. And then as we get to the front, what I like to do is just grab it and pinch it with my left hand, Get the bobbin cradle out of the way, and that'll allow me to come up and over it with my tying thread a couple of times and make sure that that's not going to come loose at all. We'll secure it in place and trim out the rest of our biot here. Smooth that over with our thread a little bit. Work up into that bead, just easing all of these transitions. And then I'm going to go on back to where that thorax is going to begin. We're going to give ourselves a good bit of room to work with on this nymph. And then we can come in with our dubbing, our first dubbing, which is some Hare's Ear Plus. Good old Hare's Ear Plus, one of my favorites dubbing for nymphs. It's got all the great attributes of the natural material while adding in just a little bit of synthetic. And to start, it's going to be a very sparse noodle because I'm just going to build up a little bit of a bump. Again, for a transition, and then also to help prop out our legs a little bit. So we'll build in that bump on the rear there of the thorax, and then go for the legs. And the legs are some good old natural partridge. So we got our partridge. I got a half a skin here, and I like to pull from the rear of the skin towards the tail end. A little bit longer feathers to work with here, which are good for the length of the legs on this fly. Find a nice one there that's not clipped or anything. Then we can come in and remove all of the under feather. Sort of getting that out of the way. Massage it all forward, and then we're going to come in and clip this feather to a V. So what I like to do is take my scissors from underneath, find that center stem, and then sort of push everything backwards and clip it. And that helps me make sure that I keep it fairly even on either side there, so that you end up with a nice V. So you're going to position it on top like so, and then pinch them to either side. And erring on the long side at this point, because it's easier to shorten the legs than it is to make them longer. Sort of one loose wrap over top, and then kind of a slightly tighter securing wrap, but I don't want to pull too snug yet because I'm still going to manipulate it a little bit. So those are just a little bit long. Just going to take that feather and shorten it up slightly there, so there's not quite the full length of the abdomen. And then I can come in and give it a nice snug wrap. That'll help it flare. And then I like to pull the feather back, sneak in front of it a couple times, then I can give it some extra wraps, and that's not going to come loose. And I can also come in and snip it without it moving around on me at all. We'll clip the rest of the feather out of the way. If I can get it all, there we go. Now I'm going to come back in with just a little more of that hare's ear dubbing. So another noodle about the same size as that first one. We can put that right on top. And then we will come in and add in our trigger point now. This is from Hens. It's an excellent insect green ice dub style color. Works really good on this fly. And we're gonna add in a fairly healthy amount here. Sort of noodle it all up, get it nice and bound tightly. But I'm gonna leave a little bit of naked thread there because I'm gonna come up over the top. I don't want any of that ice dubbing wrapping as of yet. And I'm gonna take it and I'm just gonna push it all straight downward. And then from there, as I sort of go forward, I'm gonna try and keep it all on top as best as I can. As I wrap forward, you can sort of manipulate it as you go around and keep that positioned towards the top of the fly. So you still have a natural underbody, but you have that nice green hot spot on top. And once you're happy with where that is, you can give a few extra wraps. I like to kind of work back on it as well. And then we're going to come in with some more hare's ear. and finish off a nice collar and round out this thorax a little bit. We want to cover up all the underbody if we're able to, and just sort of finish out the fly. Add a little more in. So you ensure that you're going to cover up underneath. You want that nice natural underneath and that nice hot spot on top. So we'll skip around it a little bit. And then on forward there. Got some things sort of unwieldy here. We'll just trim those out. You can keep them that way if you want it to be super, super buggy. Partridge legs are still in place. Maybe a little more dubbing. Fun little fly, cool way to tie. And go under again a couple of times. So yeah, if you got a nice orange, red, I like the green. Lots of different options with this Trigger Nymph fly pattern. It's a fairly larger size than the size 14 today. You can go quite a bit smaller, especially the 14 with the long shank, that is. But we'll whip finish it there. And we got ourselves a nice little Trigger Nymph. Great little fly to have in the box. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this fly. Let us know what you think as you start to spin them up for yourself. Drop us a line in the description if you got a pattern that you'd like to see us tie in the future. Check out the recipe for all the materials down there. Everything's available at avidmax.com. Thanks for watching and have fun at the vise.